look for Bishop Beauty. This one is inspired basically by Earth Day, since the drop for it was on Earth Day and it's super important. So let's get into it. So Earth Day was started back in 1970. So 2020 was actually the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, which I think is really cool. No, I'm not necessarily a tree hugger, but I do think it's important for us as humans to, be super tapped in with our environment, as well as just to make sure, like, this planet is still here while our kids are here. Just a thought. But anyways, Earth Day is something I think is like super important, not only just for the aspect of remembering that like we live on a whole planet that supplies us with food and resources, but also because we literally live on this planet. And because of a lot of the stuff that we're doing, and because of the fact that people don't take it seriously, we have severe storms, weather watches, and everything else, just because of the simple fact that we as humans are basically doing a number on the planet we live on. Now, don't get me wrong, I've done my fair share to not necessarily help the planet, and just like everybody else, there are certain things that I don't do that I probably should do in order to do my part in saving the planet. But one thing I actually do, which most people definitely will argue with about, is my diet change. So I'm a vegetarian. Yeah, that's a vegetarian, you see. And it helps the environment and a lot of people, as well as animals that we need to actually help sustain this planet. So that's another big reason why it's super important to make sure that your diet is just as clean as the earth you live on. As well as, people don't seem to think about this, but the amount of space that we use for cattle and things of that nature could be put to other things that would help our planet, because most of the land they use cattle on is basically grazing, so there's nothing being really planted there, as well as it's just being used to take up space. Then on top of that, you have, of course, the amount of trees we cut down, and yes, we are going into an age where everything is digital, but it's not 100% digital. And yes, of course, there are some drawbacks to having everything digital, because legit, as I'm saying this, I'm speaking in a library who has tons and tons of trees wrapped in more trees because they're books. But on the same token, it's also a thing of where you have to remember that having all this access to a lot of paper and stuff like that, if it's not having a purpose or being used, it shouldn't really need to be done. So like, currently there are places in Virginia who are clearing out trees, and when I mean trees, I mean like literal like mini forests, to make space for a new highway. But the thing is, most of those go to lumber yards and stuff like that to be used to other things. So it's a recycling process, but at the same time, they tore down tons of trees to make more traffic, which creates more emissions, which creates more greenhouse gases, and not in the best way for our planet. So yeah, it's a whole cycle of bad. And then on top of that, because of the fact that humans have basically inhabited most of the planet, it makes it really hard and difficult to keep habitats of lots of different animals. So all the animals that your kids see at the zoo eventually will be the last few of their species, because of the simple fact of we haven't done enough to be able to coexist with them, and we decide to use the same animals we think are cute as a food source. So yeah, it's a good time. But also, thinking about it this way, if we were to manage to not use as much of certain resources or not take up as much space, we'd be able to easily coexist with a lot of animals. That's why you see a lot of times on the news where bears are coming out of their habitat, or certain animals that are usually very reclusive and things of that nature have now become more seen or cause problems for humans, because of the simple fact of we feel they're encroaching on our space when in actuality we've encroached on their space to the point where we don't know exactly the damage that we've done. So we've changed their eating habits to where some animals, because they know humans are close by and they're guaranteed a food source, they feel like they don't have to hunt, which drastically takes down the population as well as their muscle structure and other things besides their diet. Or in other animals' cases where they're very territorial, this causes lots of animals of those species, that particular species, to get put down just because we are trying to share the same habitat as them, but they were there first. So now them coming out at night causes them to get hit by cars, or for people to be less afraid of them and approach them more often when, hey, by the way, this is a wild animal. They're not your friends. You don't approach them. You leave them alone so they can go about their day. But with all the bad, there is some good. Like certain places, mostly out west that I've seen, have animal highways where they go build underpasses or overpasses for animals to be able to go over or under highways so they're not constantly being hit, or find other ways to be able to get through traffic that humans cause. So this way you can have less roadkill or any animals being hurt or having to pay fines because of the simple fact that someone decided that they wanted to speed and end up hitting a poor animal, and then your car is jacked up in the process as well. So saves room for a lot of error. Another big thing that Earth Day really supports is just not just like the whole aspect of, I guess, what some people may call being a tree hugger, but also the thing of just being an environmentalist and a person who cares about not only animals but people as well, because the amount of emissions we create also affects our children. So certain areas in the United States or around the world have poorer air quality just because of the emissions or the type of environment they are in. So perfect example, Flint, Michigan still has really bad water, but that's because of terrible piping and sewage systems and everything of that accord. So could you imagine if we were to use better materials for our water and welling systems that would be able to, one, sustain itself, but also two, keep from allowing lead or things that are supposed to be filtered out of our water, like harmful chemicals and fluoride of things of that nature, to be able to help us out. Also, the idea of people using less resources or certain things during a certain time of day is also super important. So how energy companies tell you if you do certain things during the winter or during the summer, it will reduce your bill, but it also helps the environment as well. Because the amount of power you're using, be it that we're still kind of relying on fossil fuels and as well as like other means of creating energy as opposed to solar or water energy, means those things are higher in demand. So they constantly have to be pumped into the air, made in factories, or something that affects the air and pollutes it, or the waters and pollutes it. Now, if we're talking about water pollution and things that could be done on that, one, we have to be able to find other ways to move trash, as well as find better ways of having humans use the bathroom, I guess, so to speak, because our sewage systems are terrible, and some of those actually get filtered and rooted out into the oceans because it's a lot cheaper to do so than fixing the actual problem, which isn't a good thing, and it says a lot about the major companies and corporations that we allow to be in the United States or just in general around the world, that has effect on how we live our day-to-day lives, as well as how we're able to coexist with other animals of our species. Let's see. Now, a few things about the makeup. I will say this. It did take a little bit of a time, not much as we normally usually do, but it was a really fun look to do just because I was basically creating the earth and trees. And shout out to my sister Reese, who gave me the great idea to do this just in time for Earth Day, which I'm really stoked and happy to say it turned out like really great. And thanks again, Reese. And it's amazing what kids can teach you. But also just the level of importance that earth and like animals, trees, and stuff like that has on kids is astounding because surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, you'd really be amazed at how much kids have learned and taken in and honestly have decided to be on the forefront of a lot of projects where or that pertain to the betterment of our earth and things in it, because a lot of these younger people actually want to see polar bears and seals and certain things that are currently endangered right now but have the ability to be able to make a terrific comeback and have life and longevity as long as we keep certain habitats open or keep them from being poached and used for furs and stuff of that nature. And yes, I know this is not one of my very cheery videos. Trust me, I promise it will get better and then we'll have more cheerier topics. But the topic of Earth and how to save it and how to coexist with all the other things on this Earth, not just humans itself, is something that is super important and that also should be talked about more. Now, in this video, you'll also see me doing what I just did, which is like going ham. I was on the phone with my dad and basically was like talking to him and letting him know, like, I'm about to slay this look. No, just kidding. We were actually talking about like just life and stuff and how excited I am to actually be doing the look because I think it looks really terrific. And I was kind of nervous about doing the look in general just because a lot of makeup looks that I do nowadays, especially for the channel, are something that is out of my comfort zone and that I'm doing for the first time. So a lot of it, what you're seeing is like, okay, got the picture of it, first take, let's do this. So as you can imagine, doing something for the first time and putting it on camera is very nerve-wracking. But when it's for something like this, it's definitely a good cause. One, because I love makeup, and two, I get to talk about something that's actually super important and near and dear to my heart, which is the earth and making sure that all the creatures in it, including myself and ones that I know of and don't know of, actually have a home here and are able to coexist and make sure this planet is still here for our kids and their kids. But also something that's super important is not just for the simple fact of like, oh, we're trying to save the planet, but at the same time, just a thing of across the board, there are a lot of things wrong with Earth right now. And it's not just like from an environmental standpoint, it's from a human standpoint. And I think it's super important that people try to grasp and understand that, like, you know, it's not just about the money you can gain from something, but also how long and the longevity of a situation and how it will affect everybody out of a monetary standpoint. And by the way, if you're looking at my brace, yes, I wear a brace on occasion because I have carpal tunnel. So that's what happens when you bake, play basketball, and have been using computers for like forever. Yeah, fun times, super fun times. But also, I think it's super important that people make mindful notes and just think about things in general as far as the earth and things that they can do to make their environment better, not only for themselves, but for the people and the children around them. Because, yeah, I get it, it's about you for the time being, but at the same time, you're leaving this earth to somebody when you pass, and same goes for the people after you. We're all leaving this earth to someone, so maybe we should just take into consideration the people that we're leaving it to, you know? Try to make it cleaner, better, and just more efficient across the board for everybody to equally coexist and live happy lives and be able to do stuff without wondering like what could have been or what we could have had, because of the simple fact of we decided that monetary value is more important than actually saving our planet and actually making sure other people are able to stay on this planet too. So yeah, happy Earth Day.